What's up, everyone? Cody Morales here, and welcome back to Codigos Reacts. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button because today we're breaking down something absolutely massive, a night that could fundamentally shift the war in Ukraine. Ukraine struck multiple Russian regions simultaneously on February 7th. Redkino, Belgorod, Bryansk, and Saratov, all burning at once. The crown jewel, a facility producing specialized fuel for Russia's most devastating cruise missiles, fuel that's irreplaceable. Before we dive in, drop a comment below. Where are you watching from? What's your take on these deep strikes? Let's get a conversation going. I read every comment. All right, let's get into it. Let me set the scene. There's a village called Redkino in Russia's Tver region, positioned strategically between Moscow and St. Petersburg. This was a calculated strike on a facility Putin thought was completely safe, buried hundreds of miles deep into Russian territory, far beyond Ukraine's reach. Or so he thought. In the early morning hours of February 7th, Ukrainian drones took flight and headed straight for Redkino. What makes this location so special? It's home to a plant producing rare missile fuel called Desalin-M, the lifeblood of Russia's Kh-55 and Kh-101 cruise missiles. The Kh-101 is the same missile Russia used to strike Ohmydyt, Ukraine's largest children's hospital, back in 2024. Taking out its fuel source could literally save countless Ukrainian lives. According to United 24 media, Ukrainian drones bypassed Russia's air defenses and scored multiple direct hits on the facility. NASA's firm satellite platform confirmed active fires at the exact location. Residents on the ground filmed everything: thick black smoke billowing into the night sky, massive explosions lighting up the darkness, and Russian air defenses firing frantically and failing miserably to stop what was coming. One dramatic video captures the moment of impact. You hear the distinctive buzz of incoming drones getting closer. Russian air defense systems fire in what can only be described as panic. Then, boom. A massive explosion tears through the facility. The Redkino plant erupts in flames, and decades of strategic infrastructure begins burning to the ground. Residents also reported a distinct chemical odor emanating from the destroyed plant, confirming Ukraine didn't just hit some random building, they struck something containing hazardous chemical compounds critical to weapons production. The plant's own website describes it as having been a manufacturer of unique chemical products for the aviation and space industries for several decades. In one night with a handful of drones, Ukraine destroyed something Russia depended on for as long as Putin has been in power. That's the power of precision warfare. The Redkino strike was just the opening act. Ukraine wasn't finished, not even close. On that same night of February 7th, Ukraine deployed Neptune cruise missiles and HIMARS, high-mobility artillery rocket systems, to absolutely devastate energy infrastructure throughout the Bryansk region, plunging thousands of Russian civilians into complete darkness. Governor Alexander Bogomaz was forced to confirm the attack, admitting that power was disrupted in 7 separate municipalities. Emergency crews scrambled to restore electricity, but the damage was done. Ukraine had just given Bryansk residents a small taste of what Ukrainians have endured for years. Belgorod got hit even harder. Governor Vyacheslav Gladkov gave a dramatic, somber address claiming, "Everyone knows we have no military targets here." Really, Gladkov? Because literally on the same day you made that statement, Ukraine's general staff announced they'd struck a Russian troop concentration in Belgorod. So much for no military targets. The lie didn't even last 24 hours. According to the Kyiv Independent, this was actually the 3rd time in a single week that Belgorod experienced widespread power outages from Ukrainian strikes. Ukrainian missiles had already hammered the region on February 3rd and February 6th, with many strikes targeting the Luch thermal power plant, which supplies approximately 10% of Belgorod's heat. We're talking about February in Russia, the middle of winter. Taking out heating infrastructure in freezing temperatures isn't just an inconvenience, it's a serious crisis for civilians. But here's the staggering hypocrisy. Russia has systematically destroyed all 15 of Ukraine's thermal power plants. Every single one. A single series of Russian attacks on November 25th alone cut power to over 100,000 Ukrainians across multiple cities. But when Ukraine fights back using the exact same strategy, suddenly Russian governors are on television playing the victim card. President Zelensky addressed this perfectly. Putin sells oil, takes the money, invests it in weapons, and uses those weapons to kill Ukrainians. Is it an energy target or military target? Honestly, it's the same thing. Ukraine also struck the Balashovo oil depot in Russia's Saratov region. Every barrel of oil that burns is fuel that can't power Russian tanks, aircraft, or be sold to fund Putin's war machine. It's all connected. While chaos unfolded across multiple Russian regions hundreds of miles from the front lines, Ukraine wasn't neglecting the fight happening on its own soil. Ukrainian forces were simultaneously hitting Russian military positions inside occupied territory with surgical precision. In Zaporizhzhia, they destroyed a Russian drone command post near Rivonopilya. Drone command posts are absolutely critical to modern warfare. These are the locations where Russian operators control reconnaissance drones, attack drones, and surveillance systems. Taking out a command post doesn't just destroy physical infrastructure, it disrupts Russia's ability to gather intelligence and coordinate attacks across an entire sector. Ukraine also eliminated a Russian troop concentration in nearby Dorozhnyanka. Over in the Donetsk region, which has seen some of the most intense fighting of the entire war, Ukraine struck a Russian repair unit in Yalta. These repair units are essential for keeping Russian equipment operational. Tanks break down, armored vehicles need maintenance, artillery systems require constant upkeep. When you take out a repair unit, you're degrading Russia's ability to keep existing equipment in the fight. Ukraine also destroyed another drone command post in Mykolaiv, that's 2 command posts in one night, and took out a Russian multiple launch rocket system in Poltavka. These are the systems Russia uses to blanket Ukrainian positions with massive rocket barrages. What does this all add up to? Fewer soldiers, less equipment, degraded command and control, reduced artillery capability. Every single strike makes Russian offensive operations less intense and less effective, translating directly into slower territorial gains or potentially no gains at all. This is asymmetric warfare executed properly. Ukraine can't match Russia soldier for soldier or tank for tank, but they can hit where it hurts. Logistics, command posts, fuel supplies, and specialized facilities that can't be easily replaced. February 7th was genuinely historic. Multiple Russian regions burning, infrastructure destroyed, and Putin's irreplaceable facility going up in flames. Ukraine proved Russia's air defenses are fundamentally inadequate and that no target is truly safe anymore. Let's talk about why the Red Kino strike matters so much. It all comes down to Disilin M, and this isn't your average rocket fuel. This high-energy fuel component is absolutely essential for the cruise missile engines Russia has been using to devastate Ukrainian cities throughout the entire war. Without Disilin M, missiles like the Kh-101 and Kh-55 simply cannot function as designed. What makes Disilin M so special? First, it provides the energy density that allows Russian cruise missiles to travel over 2,500 kilometers. That's roughly 1,150 miles. This incredible range is what enables Russia to launch these weapons from deep inside Russian territory, hundreds of miles away from Ukrainian air defenses, where their aircraft are completely safe from counterattack. Think about the strategic implications. Russia can park missile-carrying bombers at air bases near Moscow, launch Kh-101 missiles, and hit targets anywhere in Ukraine without ever putting their pilots at risk. That capability depends entirely on Disilin M. Second, Disilin M has a unique chemical property that makes it perfect for Russian conditions. It doesn't freeze until temperatures drop below approximately 50 degrees Celsius, which is around 58 Fahrenheit. Russia is a cold weather country. Their military equipment has to function in Siberian conditions where regular fuels would turn into useless ice. You can't just substitute it with something else without fundamentally redesigning your entire missile system. But the plant doesn't just make fuel. The Red Kino facility also produces silicon carbide for advanced composite materials. boron nitride to protect missile engines from corrosion and extreme temperatures, and specialized heat-resistant enamels for rockets. This one plant touches almost every aspect of how Russia builds and operates its air force and missile systems. An unnamed SBU source told Ukrinform the affected plant is an important link in creating cruise missiles Russia uses to attack Ukraine. Even temporary stoppage complicates rocket fuel production and reduces the enemy's ability to maintain shelling intensity. Even if the damage is only temporary, it means significant delays in production. Delays mean fewer missiles. Fewer missiles mean reduced strike capacity. Reduced strike capacity means relieved pressure on Ukrainian cities, giving them precious time to recover and strengthen their defenses. The Kh-101 has been Russia's primary long-range weapon against Ukraine throughout this entire war. This isn't just another missile in Russia's arsenal. This is one of their most advanced precision strike weapons. And when I say precision, I'm using that term loosely, because this is the same missile that struck Omadat Children's Hospital in Kyiv back in July 2024. That attack shocked the world and demonstrated beyond any doubt that Russia has no qualms about hitting civilian targets, even hospitals filled with sick children, with their supposedly precision weapons. But the Kh-101 isn't just used against hospitals. It's been a fixture in virtually every major Russian missile strike campaign against Ukrainian cities and critical infrastructure. According to Pravda, Russia launched 158 missiles in January 2025 alone. That works out to approximately 5 missiles per day, every single day of the month. Not all were Kh-101s, but many were, making production disruption absolutely massive for Ukraine. Let me give you the technical specs so you understand how dangerous this weapon system is. Russia claims it has accuracy of just 10-20 meters or 32.8 to 65.6 feet. It's been operational since 2012, but in the first half of 2024, Russia developed a modernized version carrying 2 warheads instead of 1, effectively doubling its destructive power. The missile is dual capable, meaning it can carry either conventional explosives or a nuclear warhead. It's specifically designed to fly at very low altitudes during its flight profile, which makes it significantly harder for radar systems to detect and track, giving air defense systems much less reaction time to intercept it. The range is staggering, approximately 4,500 kilometers. That's just under 2,800 miles. That's enough to hit anywhere in Ukraine while launching from deep inside Russia, far beyond Ukrainian weapons' reach. And it hits hard. The standard warhead weighs 400 kilograms, or 881 pounds, of high explosives, doubled in the modernized version. Ukrainian air defenses shoot them down regularly, but the success rate is never perfect. In October 2024, Russia launched 270 missiles into Ukraine. Ukrainian defenses intercepted 146, a 54% success rate. But that also means 124 missiles got through, causing 124 impacts on Ukrainian infrastructure and potentially civilian areas. Ukraine would rather stop these missiles at the source than intercept them mid-flight over Ukrainian cities. The Red Kino strike achieved exactly that objective. Even temporary damage means delays in fuel production, and delays directly translate to reduced strike capability and relieved pressure on Ukraine's cities and forces. According to militarily, depending on what was destroyed, it could take 6 months to a year for Russia to restore the facility. Refueling just one Kh-101 requires approximately 1.5 tons of Disilin M. The shutdown directly affects Russia's ability to prepare massive strikes. Here's the kicker. Manufacturing the unique reactors needed for Disilin M synthesis takes 6 to 12 months, and Russia operates under heavy Western sanctions. The Red Kino facility is already under UK and US sanctions. If these reactors require Western components, Russia might not be able to replace them at all. If Red Kino built its own reactors in-house and those capabilities were destroyed, the Kh-101 could be permanently eliminated from Russia's arsenal, not just reduced, but completely taken out of the game. Russia also doesn't have huge stockpiles. The New York Times reported in August 2024 that Russia had reached a hand-to-mouth situation. Missiles striking Ukraine are often just weeks from the factory floor. Proof? Researchers examined the KH-101 that hit the Children's Hospital in July 2024. According to Damian Spleeters of Conflict Armament Research, it was manufactured between April 1st and June 30th, 2024. The attack was July 8th, meaning the missile was 8 days to 12 weeks old when used. Any halt in production stops the flow. Stopping the flow stops the attacks. Ukraine just handed Putin a massive logistical nightmare, executed brilliantly by the SBU's Alpha Special Operations Center. Let's step back from the tactical details and look at the strategic big picture. What does all of this actually mean for the broader war? First and foremost, this operation proves beyond any doubt that Ukraine's long-range strike capabilities are real, effective, and improving rapidly. Russian air defenses, which Putin has consistently touted as among the best in the world, failed spectacularly on February 7th. Ukrainian drones flew hundreds of miles into Russian territory, bypassed multiple layers of air defense systems, and struck high-value strategic targets with precision. These weren't lucky hits. This was a coordinated, multi-target operation that required detailed intelligence, careful planning, precise navigation, and flawless execution. Second, Ukraine is adopting a deliberate strategy of making ordinary Russian civilians feel the consequences of the war their government is waging. For too long, Russian citizens in Moscow, St. Petersburg, and other major cities have been completely insulated from the reality of what's happening in Ukraine. The war has been something they see on television, not something affecting their daily lives. But when the power goes out in Bryansk and Belgorod, when oil depots burn in Saratov, when chemical plants explode in Tver, suddenly the war becomes very real for Russian civilians. They start asking questions. They start wondering if maybe this special military operation isn't going as well as state television claims. This is strategic pressure, applied not just militarily, but psychologically and politically as well. Ukraine is forcing Russia to either divert massive resources to air defense of the homeland, resources that could otherwise be used at the front, or accept that their civilian population will continue suffering strikes. Third, and perhaps most importantly, Ukraine is demonstrating that the war can be won through asymmetric means. They don't need to match Russia tank for tank or soldier for soldier. They need to hit Russia's critical vulnerabilities: logistics, production capacity, morale, and irreplaceable strategic assets. Every specialized facility Ukraine destroys is one Russia struggles to replace under sanctions. Every oil depot that burns is fuel that can't reach the front lines. Every missile that's never built is one that never threatens a Ukrainian city. The February 7th operation wasn't isolated. It's part of an escalating campaign of deep strikes inside Russia that's been building for months. Ukraine is methodically degrading Russia's war-making capacity while simultaneously defending its own territory. The message to Putin is crystal clear. You cannot win this war through brute force alone. Every missile you launch at Ukrainian cities will be answered. Your air defenses are inadequate. Your territory is vulnerable. And Ukraine won't stop. There you have it. Ukraine's historic February 7th night when multiple Russian regions burned and a critical facility went up in flames. Ukraine hit the Redkino fuel plant producing Desalin-M for KH-101 cruise missiles, struck energy infrastructure in Bryansk and Belgorod, destroyed an oil depot in Saratov, and hammered Russian forces in occupied territory, all coordinated, all successful. The long-term consequences could be massive if Russia can't restore Desalin-M production quickly, and evidence suggests they can't. We could see significantly reduced KH-101 strikes, fewer civilian casualties, and more time for Ukraine to strengthen defenses. Drop a comment below. Do you think this will change the war's trajectory? What's Putin's next move? I want to hear your perspectives. If you found this valuable, hit that like button and share it. If you're not subscribed to Codagos Reacts yet, click subscribe and turn on notifications. We're covering every major development with the analysis you deserve. This is Cody Morales signing off. Stay informed, and I'll see you in the next video.